and welcome to a very special Talk in the Town episode. In this episode today, we are celebrating 10 years of Nagrik, and we have our co-founders with us, Tarun and Yutika, who would be answering a few questions, reflecting upon Nagrik's journey and the future beyond. We have the entire Nagrik team here with us online, who would take turns asking questions, and so to kick off the question and answer and the podcast, I would like to ask Rohit to ask the first question.
Thank you, Paisy. Congratulations to all Nagrik team, especially to our co-founder. So my first question to kick us off in our questions is, in your words, how would you describe Nagrik? Tarun, Yutika.
Go for it, Tarun.
You go.
So Nagrik is a resource hub and a space for all things small cities. We have built an organization that looks through the lens of research and policy at everything that happens at the small city level.
I think that's it captures the spirit and the action that we have been trying to imbibe over the last 10 years. And I think in multiple other ways, I think the visualization that we have had about Nagrik is sometimes as a lamp, which can light and bring out, remove the darkness that has surrounded the understanding of smaller cities. Sometimes we've thought about it as a college or a school, which is informal yet creates resources and builds scholarship. So even if it is not a school, it is building scholarship. So I think it is definitely stemming from the fact that it is a knowledge and resource oriented organization. It is something of a thought. Nagrik is, like, to me, it's also a thought that tries to influence other thoughts.
Congratulations, Tarun and Yutika and everyone. So I just want to ask, I have always been curious about the origins of the name Nagrik. Could you share the story behind how the name was chosen? Thank you.
Okay, so I think we both at different points of time in different ways always wanted to start something which was which was of our own and which allowed us to channelize our knowledge, channelize our training into something which was of creating public value. And after I finished my master's and Yutika was still doing her last year of master's in Columbia, at that time we were sure that we wanted to do something together at some point. So very initially, when I was working in the first job after my master's, a name had come in mind and we both discussed, and at that time we had thought that we'll create a trust or some kind of a, like, what we understood at that time. So us time pe, when we created a initial document just to start our thought processes about what would be the things it will be doing, what are some of the ideas, like what you need to basically do to register a particular thing. So I think in 11 or 2012 or 11, we had created this, and when I shared this at that time, we put the name Nagrik, but then it stayed dormant for almost 2-3 years, and then when we finally decided in 2015, the name was already there. So we, in a way, gave life to the name in 2015. But I think, yeah, the name itself had been conceptualized long back.
Hi, Tarun and Yutika. First of all, congratulations to both of you as well as the team. 10 years is such a milestone. See, what intrigues me the most is you guys left jobs working with the highest levels of government to start this organization. Could you walk us through that decision? Like, how difficult was it to build something or create something of your own? Thank you.
Thanks, Ria, and thank you all of you so far for all the questions. So I think maybe I'll talk a little bit about my journey, and then Tarun can talk about his, and we'll talk about how we built it after that together. Like Tarun mentioned, we both, and for me, I wanted to build my own organization since I was 18, like 16 or 18. I knew that the challenges I saw in India needed more and more people thinking about how do we overcome the social and the economic challenges outside of business, and just everything that led up, like my education, my the jobs I took, the roles I played, the internships I did, were building up to a skill set, not very strategically, but what I thought would help me eventually answer that question as where can I come in as a person that can address the challenges that I see around me. And in the beginning, because I came from a very small town that was surrounded by a lot of rural areas, a lot of my interventions, a lot of my work focused on rural areas. Like even when I was at the World Bank, I worked a lot in policies related to social protection, like Nāgrika or social pensions. Worked at highest levels of government to try kind of work on governance across the world, and all of it was trying to understand ki where is a point where I can actually make a change. Like, is it by starting an organization that will support artisans? Is it by starting an organization that will stop, like how can we work on, like migration has been something that I really thought of when I was 15 and moved to Bombay for my first for college, because Panchkani didn't afford those opportunities. So it is just incrementally been a journey of trying to solve a challenge. And then by 2015 had realized that I had tried multiple things, but that challenge was not getting solved. And luckily, Tarun and I had met, and we were having discussions on the side about what is it that we could potentially do to address these challenges. And Tarun will talk about it a little bit, but he was able to pull me to the urban side, making me realize that rural is something, but having lived in an urban setting, that lived experience is very rich to be able to contribute to a policy world, as opposed to an experience where I have not really been a farmer or not really lived in an agrarian society, even though I did live on the peripheries of an agrarian society. So it it at that time it just felt like the natural step to take in back in 2015, and it wasn't something that we did like in 2015. We started very slowly with registering the organization and starting with some projects um, while we maintained some ties with our previous life, and then as we built our confidence, we moved to a full-time Nagrik position. Tarun, maybe you want to share your.
So, I think like you mentioned that walk us through that decision, and I think we drove through that decision in 2015 because the idea was, as Yutika said, that in different ways and forms we'd already thought about, that in our respective jobs, in our respective policy ecosystems, we were already seeing that our cities were missing. And I was for the last before we started this for almost 8 years, I had been seeing urban policy making very closely, and I could see the ways in which smaller cities were completely, even those who had the highest amount of decision making power at the city level, were also not aware of the powers they should actually have in terms of what the constitution gives them, what the funds give them, what they actually should be doing. So I think it was the decision in terms of doing it was not so difficult, and I think, as Yutika said, that we already had made a plan that, okay, we have some sustenance. We did not break our job ties. We were still freelancing. I was still working with my previous job in an advisory capacity. Yutika was still holding on to her World Bank related roles. So we started very incrementally. And we knew that what we have set out to do is worth pursuing. And that's why we decided to take a plunge. And I think the journey around India just boosted that confidence way, like I think beyond a level that made us think that we should go back now. And that's why I think while we were on the journey, we said that, okay, we are going to, because I think on this day we were in Thanjavur, while we had already started the registration process. We were already about 1.5 months into the 1.5 2 months into the journey, and our belief had already become strong enough that we decided that we have to start it. And I think the decision was, I think, because it was coming a long way. Like Yutika already took a concentration in Colombia, which was on urban and social policy. I had already started working in this domain. We already started thinking about registering an organization in 2012. Then after, we kept talking about starting something, and I think 2015 just helped us see the value in what we want to do. And I think what was supposed to happen happened.
I just want to also come in here that in 2015 with Nagar-Nagar and the travel, when we first started Nagar-Nagar, it was almost like a test because both of us had come with backing of so many cool organizations which had so much that doors just opened for us. When we would go to government meetings, when we would meet stakeholders, we would say our name and our organization, and people would open doors. We were like, yeah, we at that time, and we were quite young. We were like, if we go to a small town, will people open doors for these two youngsters who are just coming? And we were completely blown away by the way smaller cities received us. We would be able to go to like a municipal council and just sit there and not using our affiliations, just our names. We were able to meet so many people, and there was so much receptivity to new, like just ways to exchange thought and build up, that it really gave us the confidence that this is possible. Like it doesn't, um you don't need to always come from like a pedigree organization. You could build an organization of your own that can potentially be heard, or people will at least open the door to have a conversation with you. And that really, really boosted our confidence. I think that really helped us understand that that small cities across the country were really being missed. Like the voices from these small cities were completely not um, heard. In like there was so much more that they wanted to say that was not being heard. And that, I think that confidence when we came back to Delhi really propelled us to take an office. We, even though we were doing other things, we had interns starting 2016, and I think since 2016 there's always been somebody or the other that has been with Nagrik, and that has been part of this journey with us. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Ria.
Thank you so much
Yes,
for
it does. Thank you.
thanks for the backstory. It really helps build a lot of context to what Nagrik is celebrating today in its 10-year milestone. Just to build on the previous answer, what was it that you set out to do when you started Nagrik in 2015, and how has that vision evolved? And has this trajectory over the 10 years been something that you anticipated or prepared yourself for when you started back in the day?
So I think At the very beginning, like we of course did not say that okay, this is because we were starting anyway. The premise was that there is so little understanding of smaller cities. So in terms of data, in terms of voices, in terms of resources that they need, in terms of the aspiration they want to pursue. So one thing that we knew was that we are starting in a place which already has a lot of knowledge vacuum. So to create a plan based on a gap was not the plan, because that would basically mean that we are deciding a course of action without knowing what these cities need. So I think at that time when we started, the idea was to build a repository, to build some sort of database, some sort of collection of these voices, create a baseline of what small cities may mean, right? Because back in 2015, none of the programs, there were no programs that were built around saying that okay, this is what small cities need. The only program that I had come across in the urban domain was a program called Urban Infrastructure for Development of Small and Medium Towns, which was an age old program from the 90s, which they kept in a way evergreening the same guidelines without changing them, without taking any context from the cities themselves. It was a completely top down program. The JNNURM, which was one of the biggest programs that started, had absolutely no context for smaller cities. It was built for only 65 larger cities at that time. So when we started, the idea for us was to give some sort of concrete shape to the idea of smaller cities, because at that time small cities were mostly understood as the next financial center, the next big IT wave is going to come there, the next call centers would be there. So there was only an economic understanding of cities, smaller cities as a market. But from the point of view of people who were living in those cities, from the point of view of the aspirations that these cities had, what kind of programs they would want to see, there was no such understanding. So I think when we started, the idea was to build this form of a baseline knowledge for small cities. In fact, we had gone to Habitat 3 in 2016, which is like a Kumbh Mela of urban practitioners, which happens once in 20 years, not in 12 years. And after meeting a lot of people from India also at that time and multiple developing country practitioners, we had signed a declaration which would be there somewhere. But just to capture the spirit of that declaration, the idea was that we want to create this knowledge coming for and from smaller cities. So something that you see now, which we often use for and from smaller cities, was part of our declaration in Ecuador in Quito in 2016, that we want to build this knowledge for and from smaller cities, because till then it was a lot of knowledge for programs, for policies, was for smaller cities, but it was not really from smaller cities. And we wanted to capture the knowledge networks that were coming from those cities. So I think the essence of that declaration, the essence of that thinking at that time still has stayed with us, and that has evolved. So while we started with the idea of creating a very solid, robust understanding of what small cities can mean, what that baseline of knowledge may mean, because we know what mega city means when somebody talks about it, when somebody talks about a metro. But the idea was very fuzzy and diffuse when it came to a small city. So, what are the different ways in which people can feel proud about when they say they are from a small city, or what are the problems when somebody says that this is the problem the small city is facing? What are the programs that a small city can have? So, we wanted to create that form of understanding so that small city as a concept, as a thought, is concretized. And I think that has evolved. We ourselves have evolved in our understanding of what small cities may mean. In the beginning we started looking at what are the various definitions of what various countries and geographies talk about when they talk about smaller cities. Within India, what it means now, how it has changed. We were very happy to see Swachh Bharat using this terminology very cleanly now. Uh, so I think that answers the first part of the question, which is how we started. And what was the second part? You said that how it has evolved. Right? I think Yutika, you want to take some bit of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like Tarun said, no, we started with the goal of filling this gap. and we understood, like, on both sides, like in terms of, and because both of our training is in policy, there was a lot of policy. The policy lens kept coming back, where we kept thinking that how can data or insights be taken from smaller cities to build better policies, or how can the policy knowledge be brought to the smaller cities, so the smaller city citizens take can understand what is actually happening in their small cities, or what is going to happen under a given program. Over the years, our focus has really moved to the citizens. We realize that a lot of people are there to support the governments, to support policy making, but there is very little intervention at the citizen level, where citizens are able to understand or take I want to say control, but take initiative in their own cities. Like, it is really, in our smaller cities, it feels like that there is a sense that if it is something that the government has to do, it is not in the citizens' control. It is either in the state government's control or even the city government's control, but it is not in the control of the citizens. And over the last few years, our focus, really true to the word Nagrik, which means citizen, has moved a lot more on enabling citizens. Has While we continue to build knowledge, our endeavors have changed and have moved towards building the capacity and building the understanding of citizens, like just trying to spark that thought in a citizen that this is my city and I have ownership, and my voice counts and it can change something in my city. um the hope continues to be that we are only one organization. We hope that Nagrik, like the ideas that we spark in people, can help them really stand for what they need in their own city, because somebody from the outside will never be able to understand the challenges of a citizen of that city. It is only citizens or people who live in a city that actually understand what is it that they are facing on a day-to-day level, and we want to be able to build those tools to enable them. So I think that has the trajectory has changed from just being a policy to and thought leader to wanting to be somebody who is focused much more on citizens. And it has, to answer your third question, Prezi, it has, which is it what we had expected? So we, like Tarun said at the very beginning, we just knew that this is the general area. We really, and because it has been uncharted territory, it's like the future is up for, we're just letting it unfold. And I feel like the light that Tarun says, it shows us the next two steps. It doesn't necessarily always show us where the end of the tunnel is, but it shows us the next couple of steps that really help us reach that goal. Sometimes, obviously, there are missteps, but then it always gets recorrected and redirected. But it is the three pillars that have stayed constant have been knowledge creation, small cities, and citizens at the center. I think those three are pillars that have just stayed constant in this 10-year journey so far.
In fact, that reminds me that what Prashant had asked, how did the name Nagrik come from? I think I went into the logistics of it, that how it came. But the idea of Nagrik did come from the fact that a lot of organizations work with citizens, but in a way, also, the work ends up being used by the governments without always giving the due credit to the citizens. And that was something that we were clear that if we start an organization, the Nagrik and citizen has to be at the center. And that's why the name Nagrik itself came into being. That like there were multiple like ways in which people call citizens in Hindi and Sanskrit, and Nagrik was a name which is a name used in multiple languages all across India for citizens. So that's why keeping citizen at the center and using a word which had a more vernacular approach, reach, was the reason that we chose Nagrik. And yeah, it has become more about Nagrik. That's how we have evolved, and uh, I hope that answers what you were looking for, Tracy.
Moving on to the next question. I mean, here we are getting into the nitty gritty. So I am going to break it down in two parts. So for part one, how is the policy landscape in India, right, is different than in the other countries, like in terms of your first-hand experiences and knowledge that from a worldwide perspective or a lens?
Okay. You want me to take the first stab, Yutika?
I can. I have a very small intervention, and then you can take it. So I think just from my perspective, just and a lot of it comes also from studying a lot of other countries in the master's program and also through the engagement at the World Bank. The urban areas in India are the urban population of India is larger than most countries in the world. So the scale at which we are operating is just so large. And even though it is so disaggregated in so many small cities, that it just makes it so both unique and also at a different level complicated given the language and the diversity. This is um, like like the number of people who just live in these smaller cities is more than the population of the US. Just to give us context, and we don't talk about them, and policies are not made for them. So I think that has been like a thought that has constantly been in at least my mind when we're working on smaller cities. Yeah, that was my intervention, but then you can take it from here.
So, as you said, Ki, how is the policy making process different in other countries? So, I haven't worked in multiple countries, but I have seen, like through my work and being in Singapore, then I worked with a few larger companies who worked outside India as well. And but still, out of curiosity, we try to understand. And in our own masters, we had people from 25, 30 countries. So I think there are certain similarities, there are certain differences. When both of us went to do a public policy degree at that time, India did not have any public policy course. And when I looked around, when I applied for my master's at that time, IGNOU was the only one which had a course in India, which was distance learning public policy course. And the reason for that was that public policy in India for the longest time had been a very closely held domain within the administration, within the bureaucracy and the politicians. Uh, Over the years, it has evolved where the space for third sector, third space for non-profit organizations, space for consulting organizations, research organizations has increased quite a bit. This is a similarity that is there across, I think, most of the developing countries, where public policy is being now, actually including public in some way or the other. In a lot of developed countries, I think that public policy processes are still focused a lot more on aspects which are not about bare minimums. Like in our country, for example, there is a lot more focus on policy process, on economic development, on infrastructure development, on talking about basics. But I remember, like in our masters also, there was once a group work that we were doing, and there was a assignment that we were to write a policy memo about environmental conservation in a make believe city. And we had people from Germany, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Myanmar. And the person from Germany was able to talk about what this memo could look like, who to write, what to write about. And all of us from developing countries, and this is way back in 2008, we were like, okay, this would not be the priority for us. Like we don't even know how to start engaging on this particular aspect with the politicians of our country. So I think the larger aspects of human living, especially in cities, are something which, in developing country context in India, for example, are still, I think, much far beyond in our priority list of policy processes. And that's why a lot of organization like which are in the developing domain, in consulting or advisory or in research or in NGOs, they still end up focusing a lot more on infrastructure and on ways in which economic development can happen. So I think that is one big difference I feel that is there in India and in developed countries. But otherwise, I think there are a lot of similarities in all the countries that are at a similar baseline of development. And so I don't know if that was the reason that you asked, that if you would just wanted to understand the differences, or if it is linked to something else about the work that we do at Nagrik also, you can elaborate maybe.
Sure. There is, as I said, there's a part to the question. Are these differences, or are these nuances, are they relevant for entities in India to adopt or to learn from? And if so, how can we do it? What are some good things or good examples that we can incorporate? Be it the public, be it um, uh, be it the government or the policymakers themselves, or be it the third sector, like like the one Nagrik is in. So that's how it relates with us.
So just a quick stab, Yutika, I want to take, and then you can, like, I think the main one of the main things that I think that we all should learn from, and I think the differences are there in all countries, no matter what. But I think the idea of trust and confidence in everybody's abilities, no matter which sector they are in. So the government needs to trust citizens. Citizens need to trust the governments. The government needs to trust the partners that it works with. The partner need to trust the government and the people that they draw their knowledge from. And I think this is something that I had noticed while I was in advisory and consulting, that, for example, the people who are in the consulting business in European countries, they are seen a lot more as equals, and it is seen as that they are actually helping the government in making key decisions and critical decisions, without the help of whom the government would not be able to function the way they are able to function. In a lot of developing countries, the advisory businesses, the consulting businesses, the third sector partners, people from non-profits, they're sometimes seen as even though they deliver a very important function of building and bridging knowledge gaps, bridging gaps in understanding, creating channels of knowledge which otherwise would not flow, but still at that, in some way or the other, that trust and that dignity is not there in the mutual interaction. And I think that is something that all the entities that are there in creating some sort of public value in India need to have, where in the end it is, while you're trying to create anything that you are creating through your organization or through your efforts, it should be in the service of the people that you're trying to serve. So if it is citizens, if it is a city, if it is a larger geography, the interest of that particular constituency needs to come first, and not the fact that who did it. Yutika.
I think Tarun, you covered it. I just want to add one this, that in continuation to what I was saying earlier, my hope is that new models of governance can emerge out of India for the rest of the world to learn from, given that we do have a like we have the ability, if we let ourselves, to actually govern ourselves in ways that can help our cities or our people flourish in these cities. We just I think we are just cutting ourselves short by not expecting more from, or not asking for more from all of the people involved. We don't ask enough of our citizens. We don't ask enough of our government. We don't ask enough of our businesses to in service of each other, of people, or of our environments. We are just like we're just constantly just doing without really pushing each other to do better. So I think we have that opportunity to create, and there are some glimmers of hope of people doing things, and I really, and it can only come from people, like, and that is why it really needs to be, people need to believe in themselves, and in a joint reality of a community, may it be your closest society, or it may be like in your housing society, may it be in your city, maybe as a state, like it can just, but that belief in people coming from the trust, I really hope we can build that. So yeah, my hope is that people should look, the world should look to India to be like, oh, this is an innovative model, rather than like, we can learn. I'm not saying we can't. There is a lot that we can learn from so many different models, but our challenges are unique, and we can apply ourselves to actually to solve those challenges or work with them.
Thank you, Yutika. Thanks, Tarun. That's super informative and inspiring.
Yutika, you mentioned about hope and what all Nagrika as an organization has achieved or trying to achieve. Right. So my question is, looking ahead to next 5 to 10 years, how do you hope Nagrik will grow and contribute in this journey? And where do you see yourself in that journey?
I hope in our lifetime there is no need for Nagrik. Like, small cities are so like front and center that there needs no, like, that the evolution of Nagrik is that from, like, when we started, the goal was just to, in the policy discourse, to bring the small city challenges to the policy table only. Yani koi to baat kare, like at least somebody speaks about small cities at the largest, at the national level, and there are policies that are designed for that. Our hope is that that should not be a problem in the next 10 years. That policies are actively designed with support and with participation and with recognition from people in the smaller cities that actually live there.
Yeah.
Tarun.
Yeah, I think that definitely is the hope that when we started at the time, we were like, small city agendas are not on the tables only, and we said we'll create a table, and so that table is there. We hope that there are multiple such tables, and we don't need to be on all those tables. Hopefully, those tables can table their own agendas, pursue them, reach their logical goals. We do hope to evolve as a resource organization, as a knowledge hub. We have, as per last census, about 8,000 cities. These cities are likely to grow. The amount of knowledge and learning that they hold is immense. And we do hope that as we evolve, we are able to meaningfully convert and transform these different voices, these varied knowledge points that are there inherent in the thinking of these citizens and citizen groups to help inspire others. And I think when we started, I remember having this conversation that, and in fact, those who have also inspired us, they used to say that, you need to have a long-term vision. And we absolutely believe that 10 years is like a really short time when it comes to bringing about a generational thought change. And we just scratch the surface in that regard. I think to be able to start make people shift their thinking, And we do hope that as times change, thinkings also need to change. So what we were thinking 10 years earlier, that people need to start thinking like this, we know that we will have to start thinking 10 years ahead, that in 10 years, this is how you should start thinking. So we do hope that our thinking evolves in a way that we are able to help people start thinking about things that they should be thinking ahead. Uh, I know it's a bit of a tongue twister, but the idea is that we hope to continue inspiring new thoughts, and hopefully those thoughts lead to conversations which can lead to change in people's own context, so that parachuting of thought processes, gentrification of thought processes does not happen. And I think that's a hope for not just 5, 10 years, for as long as we can do it. I hope
Hi,
that.
Tarun. Adding to what you just said, like I would focus more on the emotional aspect of that, like whatever you said. How does it feel that anyone who has been associated with Nagarik, they carry a thought, like they carry something which you both have been trying to build for 10 years now. So how does it feel like anyone who has been associated with Nagarik, either in form of fellowship or writing context or anything, like the work which we have been doing so far. So, like, how does it feel? They also carry a thought which you guys are trying to build over 10 years or more.
I can give you an example that I just shared in the morning with Yutika. Somebody just emailed us yesterday saying that that we've done with the fellowship, but I can actually read from part of the email saying it's been 3 months since graduating, and yet the learnings and spirits from the fellowship draws me back to Nagrik, and they are trying to start something in their own city where they want to start a collective, where they want to start documenting, want to identify what exact challenges their city faces, how to identify it, not do it based on the research that is commissioned outside, but by talking to people with their own city. So I think when something like this happens, I think we feel that our purpose has been served. It gives us immense sense of satisfaction, immense sense of relief, and immense sense of immense sense of belief in what we set out to do is actually doing what it is. I think it always is extremely fulfilling, and we keep seeing this in bits and pieces, and it helps us keep going at it. So,
Thank you, Ria, for the question, because I think this is something that's at the heart of how I think for us we measure in our heads impact. It is not something that can be covered in any matrix, in anything that so far we've never not figured it out. But we know that the people that have been associated with Nagrik, there is a slight shift in their thinking, and they can't ignore that shift anymore. Some people have gone on to like decide their PhD topics based on our interactions, and their PhD topics have focused on smaller cities. Some people have gone on to do something completely unrelated, but they still in spaces that they can bring this lens of how is this different for this geography. So it is immensely fulfilling, like Tarun said, to hear of these. And I think our hope is just by our being that anybody that comes across Nagrik just questions that, there is something different that this geography needs, or that a city is. It is a different entity than a village, than a state. That there is a city-based identity that has the capacity to bring people together, and has the capacity to do something fulfilling and contribute to society.
So, when we were talking about how India is different in terms of policy making, there's this perception that politicians, as an idea or as people, tend to hold more of a limelight compared to policy makers, like their image as policymakers, or the process in itself. How do we bridge the gap between these perceptions and their roles into the public discourse?
So I think if there is a gap, and if it is a perception gap, I think the only way in which you can change perception is through knowledge. Uh, and there is, because if it is a misunderstanding, then also you can change the misunderstanding if you provide the right understanding through knowledge. If you don't know something and you're ignorant, then also the only way in which you can provide data points or thinking is through knowledge. And it's probably the same thing when it comes to politicians, to my mind, in terms of the perception that the politicians hold. And like, for example, if you were to think, there are so many things around us in our cities, right? And a lot of times our perception that who is providing for it is based completely on what we think is there, right? So it's possible that we think that public transport is provided by X entity, or we might not realize that who's supposed to pick up the garbage, or we might not know that who's supposed to provide us water services. Sometimes we know, sometimes we might not know. If a politician comes and takes credit for something, we are likely to believe that they are the ones who have done it. But if we were to dig deeper and try to identify that how exactly does it get solved if I'm facing a problem, right? So if I go down a path of curiosity, of identifying and seeking knowledge, then maybe some of these misunderstandings will fall apart, right? So at a city level, that what is that my politician does. If a politician who is my MP or MLA, if he takes credit for something, or at a national level, if somebody says that, okay, we have provided these many crores to these many people in X number of villages, do we always believe them? If there is a big banner which says कि हमने इस कोष के द्वारा इतने लोगों को रोजगार दिया, is that only the national level program that has done it, or there are multiple state and city level functionaries who have enabled it? So I think, and that I'm seeing that as also a role of organization like ours to create that understanding that this is a policy space, and policy making space is multi-institutional, and it is not only about saying that who's done it, but also figuring out how they have done it. So if that knowledge is provided in the right context, then people might know that, okay, because if somebody says, okay, we are going to build a metro in my city, is it only the organization which will have the name of it, like a Metro Rail Corporation which has done it, or there are multiple others who are supposed to have a say in making sure that they are able to do it or not do it? So I think that context specific knowledge is the only way in which these perceptions can change. And that's why it is important that at small city level, especially in smaller towns and middle-sized towns, a lot of times this perception is held by by grandstanding and by large speeches and by creating a narrative which can mask this perception of who actually is doing who's actually doing what. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think the only way in which you can remove this misperception is by providing the right knowledge that can fix that perception.
Thank you so much, Tarun and Yutika, for taking the time. This has been a really meaningful and insightful time getting to know all of your stories, trying to map the vision for Nagrik, and also to see all the work that has been done. Thanks to also the team for bringing in these questions that helped us anchor the podcast. To many more years of looking at Nagrik's work and all the ripples in all the subtle and loud ways that we continue to make.